This is Audible.
From the mind of J.K. Rowling. A new story in the Harry Potter series. Harry and the Hat.
Chapter 1. A Knock at the Door. There was a knock at the door of 4 Privet Drive. The Dursley family had just sat down for dinner in front of their television, and Vernon was not happy to be interrupted. He lifted himself from his armchair and stormed over to the front door. But there was nobody there.
"Hello, sir."
Mr. Dursley looked left, and he looked right, but he could not find the source of the voice.
"I'm here to see Mr. Potter, sir."
There, on the entrance mat, a nervous-looking creature appeared from thin air.
"My name is Dobby, and I—"
"There is no Potter here," shouted Vernon, and he slammed the door. Bad enough he had to house his freak nephew. Now there were rat men showing up at his front door. This simply would not do. Harry heard Vernon storm up the stairs and approach his room. Harry shrank into his bed as Vernon approached his door. Chapter 2. A Birthday Letter. Harry had been locked up in his room for weeks, with 8 padlocks on the door and heavy iron bars bolted over the window. Through a small opening beneath the door, meals could be slid through. But since his fat cousin Dudley was in charge of delivering those meals, Harry was surviving on half-eaten bread crusts. It was all right, thought Harry. In a few hours it would be his 13th birthday, and soon he would be entering his 2nd year at Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry closed his eyes and pictured himself flying across the grounds with his broomstick, feasting in the great hall and spending time with his friends. Suddenly the scar on Harry's forehead burnt red hot, as the image of Lord Voldemort disturbed his daydreams. Harry fell into a fitful sleep. Morning found Petunia Dursley peering out of the blinds. Across Privet Drive, a neighbor peered back. "What is she up to now?" murmured Mrs. Dursley.
"What's for breakfast?"
demanded a voice. Her little angel Dudley sat heavily at the kitchen table, licking his meaty lips. Dudley's plate was soon stacked high with sausages, thick strips of bacon, honey-glazed pork chops, smoked ham, and a thin slice of tomato on top.
"What's this, Mum?"
asked Dudley, looking at the vegetable with disgust. "Oh, Dudders, Dr. Reynolds says you have to start eating healthier." At that, Dudley threw a tantrum, crying, shouting, breaking everything within reach.
"I don't want to eat it, Daddy. I won't. I won't."
"Oh, good little tyke," laughed his father as he sat down to eat his own heaping breakfast. "Don't listen to the doctors, Duddy. Grow up big and strong like me." A plate with a thin slice of tomato slid beneath Harry's door. He fed the sliver to Hedwig, his once beautiful owl, who had lost most of her feathers in the confines of the Dursleys' house. "I know, Hedwig," said Harry. "We'll be out of here soon, and you'll be flying all across Hogwarts." Hedwig looked up at Harry and coughed. Dobby passed silently through the back door of the Dursley house and crept past the strange muggles. Stepping over the creaky first step, Dobby climbed the stairs and reached Harry's door. It was Hedwig who noticed the letter slip through the food slot. She alerted Harry with a decrepit "Hoot." On the front of the letter, the words "Happy Birthday" were written in a scrawl. No way the Dursleys had remembered his birthday, and if they had, giving him a letter? No, this must be from one of the Weasleys or something. Harry reached for the letter, but a knobby hand flashed through the food slot and grabbed his fingers. The hand pulled Harry's fingers through the door slot and kept pulling until Harry's whole arm slipped through. Harry felt his arm slide under the door up to his armpit. "Stop!" cried Harry. His shoulder squeezed tight, and it slowly popped through the door slot as well. As Dobby yanked Harry through the door slot with his strange house elf magic, Harry felt his neck being tugged under the door frame, and now his head began to drag through as well. With one eye, Harry could see the inside of his musty room. The other eye was in the bright hallway, where Dobby the house elf was pulling his arm. "Dobby, stop! Stop!" Harry tried to say, but his mouth was pressed flat against the floor. His arm had reached to twice its length, and still Dobby strained to pull Harry through. A loud squeak signaled that Dudley was getting up from the kitchen table. Heavy footsteps padded towards the stairs. "Put me back, Dobby, please," begged Harry, his arm now stretching halfway down the hallway.
"No, sir,"
insisted Dobby breathlessly.
"you need to get to the castle right away, sir."
With a great pull, Dobby yanked Harry's head through the meal slot, and the rest of his torso popped through as well. Now only Harry's left foot was stuck in the door, and Dudley was panting his way up the stairs. Pull me through, please," whispered Harry desperately.
I can't quite,"
breathed an exhausted Dobby. Realizing that he must free himself, Harry stretched his now 10 feet long arms out and grasped the stair railing. He pulled with all his might. His left foot was almost through. Dudley gasped, partly from the hike up the stairs, but mostly from the sight in the hallway. Harry Potter, his cousin, was stretched all the way down the hall. The two boys met eyes, and Dudley began to shout. Just then, Harry's foot slipped free of the door, and, like a slingshot, he shot down the hallway towards Dudley. The boys collided and tumbled down the stairs together. Dudley Dursley was wrapped in Harry's long limbs, and he began to wail,
"Mommy, Daddy."
Aunt Petunia stood staring at the scene, her mouth hanging open. Vernon came into the hallway just in time to see his elongated nephew open the front door and clumsily drag himself outside. The boy stood himself up on his spaghetti limbs, reaching almost 20 feet tall. For a moment they stood looking at each other.
"Think of the neighbors,"
gasped Petunia. Snapping out of his shock, Vernon stormed outside.
"You get down here right now, boy," he shouted, or I'll kill you."
"I can't," pled Harry, his legs wobbling.
"Master Potter,"
came a familiar voice. Dobby appeared in the front yard with all of Harry's things. "Dobby, how did you—"
"Hurry, Master Potter,"
called Dobby, and he threw the boy his Nimbus 2000 broomstick. Harry reached for the broomstick and began to float upwards.
"He hurt me, Daddy,"
Dudley cried from inside.
"Not so fast, boy,"
spat Vernon, and he grabbed onto Harry's long left leg. But instead of dragging Harry back down to the ground, Vernon found himself being lifted up into the sky. He held on tight to Harry's leg as they flew to Hogwarts. Chapter 3. The Great Hall.
Said the Sorting Hat. "Very interesting. Very interesting indeed."
The old pointed hat was thinking deeply atop Vernon Dursley's head. Vernon sat quietly. He had been humbled by the magic of the world he had discovered here at Hogwarts.
This is not a wizard at all,
Shouted the old hat. Everybody in the great hall gasped in surprise.
A muggle at Hogwarts?
Cried Draco Malfoy. The students and professors were in chaos. Even Professor McGonagall couldn't silence them.
No, not a muggle,
Whispered the patched-up old hat. The students and faculty went silent. Professor Dumbledore stood up.
If he is not a muggle, and he is not a wizard, then what is he?
The hat drew a great breath and shouted,
We have found our next sorting hat!
The great hall erupted in applause. Chapter 4 Hat School. Vernon Dursley walked down the halls of Hatwarts School for Hats and Caps. There were baseball caps, toques, sombreros, knit cozy winter hats, propeller hats, helmets, hairnets, bull hats, sun hats, Vernon went to his first class, keeping shade. He sat down nervously next to a confident-looking baseball cap.
Well, what's your name?
Asked Vernon. The baseball cap looked Vernon up and down, and turned back to the front, scooching his chair a little bit farther away. Obviously, Vernon was going to have to start from the social bottom. The professor came in and tapped on her desk.
Shush, shush, shush now. Class begins at precisely 9:30, and I will not have talking past 9:31. Are we clear?
The class nodded in agreement.
Very well. Open your books to page 1, chapter 1, How to Make Shade. Now we have a new student today, and his name is Vernon Dursley. Why don't you stand up and say hello, Vernon?
Vernon stood up and said hello to the class.
Hello, this is all very new to me, so I'd appreciate if anyone could give me any help after class or just showing me around this beautiful school.
Very well, Vernon, sit down. Now, today we're going to be discussing throwing shade, laying shade, and keeping the sun out of people's eyes. This is very much a basic class, and very much the minimum that a hat should be able to do on a sunny day. Now, the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. That means that in the morning a hat should be facing west, and in the evening it should probably be facing which direction?
Choopy, the peppy witch's hat, threw her feather into the air.
Yes, Choopy?
It should be facing east.
Very nice, Choopy. I can see that you've been reading your textbooks. 8 points to Hatson's house.
The Hatson House students smiled and patted Choopy on the back of the hat.
Probably spent all summer inside reading that book instead of exploring the caves of Hawaii with like I did,
Sneered a green hat that was a bowler's cap and shiny black and green.
That'll be enough talking. Now, remember to finish reading chapter 1 and prepare a report on the sun's basic direction and rotation for next week's class. Very well, thank you.
The students filed out of shade class. This was going to be one heck of a year for Vernon Dursley as he went to become the next big sorting hat. The end.
Audible hopes you've enjoyed this program.